Hello everybody, Nitsa Gamer here with my favorite Sonic game of all time. A game where you play as heroic characters causing mass terrorism, destruction of property, and barely work together as a team. Or the dark characters who save each other from destruction, honor their grandparent, and work really well together as a team. Since the hero characters are spending more time adding to their criminal record, how about we make them less greedy and beat the game with empty invisible pockets? Can you beat Sonic Adventure 2 Battle without collecting reins? The rules are simple. We must see if we can beat every stage and boss fight in story mode without picking up a single rein. If a scenario proves to be impossible, we just see the minimum number of reins required to beat the stage while getting hit by the closest enemy to revert back to zero. By the time we finish the game, we should have a total reign count of 0, which we can see during a results screen or on the stage select screen. And we must play on a new game file so that way we can't use certain abilities earlier than usual. Originally I streamed this run on the GameCube version of the game, and while the footage is usable, the Steam version just looks a lot more appealing to look at with higher quality. Also, a huge shout out to the Sonic Adventure 2 Battle speedrun community, as they have helped a lot with this challenge run, and were able to pull off insane tricks that I couldn't do myself. So, without further ado, let's start with the hero's story. In City Escape, there's a set of reins in the middle of where you start riding down the street. All you gotta do is just tap the control stick to the left and Sonic should be able to dodge them easily. And it's a matter of avoiding where the reins are, getting around tight corners, and ruining the lives of innocent families. Thankfully, using the brakes on the board can make this section easy to control, but you can't steer when you brake. And once you get to the sections on foot, we're going to be experiencing the effects of not having reins. Not having reins will be an insta-kill if you get hit by any enemies. So by giving our life source the priority to avoid, as opposed to the thing that causes us death, death becomes more threatening than ever before. And one thing that had me worried at first when I started this run was the checkpoints, since hitting the star posts can sometimes give you reins when crossing them. However, the star posts have a unique property to them based on the amount of reins you are carrying. The higher the reins, the more reins you get, or you get protection to prevent you from losing them. If we have 19 reins or less, we actually don't get any rewards out of the checkpoints, so there's no fear of using the star posts for this run. And thank frickin' God, because the amount of times I've had to repeat certain sections because I collected a rein is a lot, so thank God this is not going to be a burden on our run. City Escape for the most part is easy. Just don't grind down on the rails and run down the stairs like a normal person. Jump over or around a set of reins when required. And don't be afraid to take it slow because you're definitely not going to get A-ranks with this kind of run. The hardest part is when we reach this loop where we run down the building. There seems to be an invisible wall that prevents you from just jumping over to the right easily, and as you arch to the top, a set of reins will be waited for you as Sonic will always run in the middle when taking loops. So if we jump at the right timing, we could skip these reins and get over the invisible wall and fall down the building. This took me several tries as I kept getting at least one rein, but if you jump at the right time, you can bypass this area with no reins. The next part is when we go under the street sign into the gun truck section. No matter how many times I try to roll to the side, Sonic will always step onto the dash panel, defaulting him to running straight into these 5 reins. And no matter how many times I mash the jump button or try to move to the side, I always have to start the gun truck section with at least 5 reins. I've tried this part several times, but I could never prevent Sonic from picking up these 5 reins. So I go to YouTube to see what speedrunners would do, but they would always roll under the signs, likely because it's faster, or there's no out-of-bounds method of skipping the gun truck portion, or at least the start of it. So sadly, it is currently impossible to beat City Escape without collecting at least 5 reins. The next hardest part is avoiding all the reins without being able to see them in front of you, but it is doable. So, is there a way to beat City Escape reinless? Well, I'm gonna put this on the back burner and talk to the speedrunning community and see if it's possible to beat reinless. Next up is the fight against Bigfoot, and thankfully, just walking around its fires while avoiding the reins is easy. You could sometimes do a homing attack on it as it's flying around the arena, and the best moment to attack is just when it's about to land, as you want to get a hit on it before it starts launching missiles at you. So this boss fight is so far the first possible mission to beat with 0 rains. Next up is Wild Canyon, and the fortunate thing with the treasure hunting stages is that it's not about getting to the goal rain, but rather climbing and gliding in a wide open area, making it easy to get all 3 pieces of the Master Emerald without having to touch a single rain, so Wild Canyon was thankfully no trouble at all. Next is the rival fight against Dr. Eggman, and while there are rains in the area, avoiding them is the easy part. The problem is that if your rival picks up a rain and you hit them, they will lose those rains, making them a potential danger to fight close up as you can pick up their loose rains. So just keep your distance and kill Eggman as if he's already killed Sonic. Next we get Prison Lane, and unlike the speed and treasure hunting stages, Tails and Eggman's health is determined on a health meter at the bottom of the screen, as rains are only necessary to slowly regenerate health. So getting hit will not be an instant death, and thank goodness. But the downside with their gameplay is that their mechs are thick. Thicker bodies means bigger hitboxes, which means it's easy to get rains accidentally. But thankfully, there's an easy trick called hugging the wall. Should I go all Omochow on you and explain how this works? Okay, I won't. And while it's not a bad idea to clear enemies in an area, you don't want to blindly shoot all over the place as you can lock onto item boxes. While items like health kits, bombs, shields, and extra lives are useful, most item boxes are rains, which of course we can't collect for the run. So be careful when you blindly shoot everywhere that you don't accidentally shoot an item box with rains in it. So when it comes to Prison Lane, it's just a matter of patience and walking against the wall to avoid rains. We don't have Tails' hover ability at this point, so you just gotta make it all doable without the need to hover. There's some close calls and some rains that are not as centered as they seem, making only one side of the wall feasible. But thankfully this stage doesn't appear as threatening as it seems despite some close shaves, so Prison Lane is definitely doable. After Tails and no one else save Sonic, we do Metal Harbor, which I'm sure is the one stage you want to see beaten rainless. And for the most part, the rains are very easy to avoid. And we can get ourselves a free 1-up, and we just gotta... oh, rains. The main power-up in this stage is the Lightspeed Dash Shoes, and the dev-intended strategy is to pass this area with the Light Dash through the rains. Sonic says, screw that, and just jumps to the highest point. We can't move the camera up here, but with a simple spin dash and a jump, we can get to the harbor without the light dash. Alright! But then we have this gap with no high area. You might think that a well-timed spin dash and a jump from a high area will help us across, but that's the complete opposite of what we need to do. We need to effortlessly go to a low area and let a rocket take us across. Yeah, apparently there's a rocket down here. I guess maybe because the developers thought we would collect rains without light dashing or something. I don't know. But it's honestly an amazing coincidence it's even down there in the first place. So we proceed through the rest of the level while avoiding some rains in the center, avoid using the homing attack on the item box, and then we reach the rocket. The rocket is the easiest part. Next, you have to avoid 4 item boxes containing rains and the rains at the bottom near the center. Using the brakes can help you get a good feel of avoiding the rains, but just remember that you can't steer while using the brakes. Then it's just one loop and we have beaten all of Metal Harbor without collecting a rain. Oh yeah, we're on a roll! But then Sonic and Shadow compare fur colors and they fight. This is a pretty simple fight made tougher by the fact that you can't collect rains. Similar to the fight against Eggman, Shadow will lose rains when you hit him, so be extra careful and observant with all of his moves. It's a one-hit KO for you, but if you know what you're doing, you can complete the rival fight with 0 rains no problem. Next is Green Jungle. We may have 8 minutes to complete this level, but don't worry, that's plenty of time. Once we start, we need to stop and jump to avoid the rains in the center, and just take the upper part through the area. Dodging the rains is pretty simple if you're patient enough, and the speed sections sometimes offer you vines to grind on to avoid the rains below. When you go inside the tree, you might be wondering, Is it possible to get the Ancient Light upgrade? Well, the dev intended method is a no-go thanks to Rains, but with a spin dash and a jump, you can collect this power up Ringless. Not that we'll ever use it, but meh, it's cool to have. Once you reach the sprains going up the tree, make sure you hold left after this sprain to avoid collecting the magnetic shield, as that will attract Rains to you. Then after this sprain, just hold forward and you can dodge all these Rains. Or you can do a homing attack on this one up and get up easily. From here, you just have to be observant and patient with the pathway through the jungle, and you can beat Green Forest Rainless with plenty of time, no problem. Next, Knuckles wraps in Pumpkin Hill, which of course is more than doable Rainless. Get the power upgrade to dig, and grab the 3 shards. Done. Next, we get Tails in Mission Street, and this is probably one of the easiest levels to complete Rainless. The only thing to note here is that you will get the hover ability from this level, otherwise, an easy stage.
That was easy!
See, even Tails agrees. Then we get Aquatic Mine. Simple to complete Rainless, although the air necklace is quite difficult to get since we have 2 openings with Rains at the bottom. I failed to get it on my GameCube playthrough, so I assumed I would not have enough time to avoid Rains while trying not to drown. But after trying it again on the Steam version, it was a close call, but I managed to get this power up at the last millisecond. Nice! Route 101 is a straightforward stage. Reach the President's limo before the timer runs out. The rains and balloons are easy obstacles to avoid and are not required, as you can beat the stage easily without the boost. Well, aside from City Escape, we seem to be doing good so far. What at all possibility can go wrong? Hidden Base can go wrong. Hidden Base has plenty of rains to avoid and plenty of annoying monkeys flinging bombs at you. Hey, it could be worse. However, once we reach this point of the stage, we have a pulley that, no matter how we approach it, will force us to collect 6 rains. And the worst part is that this pulley is the only way to progress through the level. The outside area is a no-go as there's invisible walls everywhere. Trying to go over to the statue offers nothing, and even if we had all of Tails' power-ups like the Mystic Melody, there is no alternate way to progress through the stage other than using this pulley. So unfortunately, Hidden Base cannot be completed with 0 rains. So we just get hit by the closest enemy to revert back to 0 and complete the rest of the stage rainless. Though we're gonna put this one on the back burner with City Escape to look at the possibilities later. Pyramid Cave is up next, and at first this level seems like a no-go at one particular moment. The first obstacle comes when you jump off this jump plate. You want to go off on the edge to avoid the rains in the middle. When you reach your first loop, you want to jump before you reach the dash panels, and once again, go on the side of the jump plate to avoid another set of rains ahead. And be careful of the Gamma replicas, as these guys will have a faster reaction to firing their guns. Next, we obtain the Bounce Bracelet, which becomes one of the most useful upgrades for the Rainless run. Once you reach the area where you need the second key, the dev intended method to reach the key requires you to grind on a rail full of rains all the way through, or use a pulley at the bottom. And regardless of how you jump at the pulley, Sonic will always pick up at least 1 rain. And the Bounce Bracelet unfortunately does not give us enough height to get to the other side. So, does this mean we have to beat the entire stage with 1 rain? Well, it's now time to introduce you to the Super Bounce. The Super Bounce is an exploit where if we charge up a spin dash and do a bounce up against the wall, we can carry the momentum from the spin dash into our bounce. This will allow us to bypass boundaries in the game for both glitch hunters and speedrunners. To perform this glitch, you need to charge up a spin dash and dash at the wall, and just before you hit the wall, you want to simultaneously press the jump and action button to perform a bounce. The hardest part is the timing, but with enough patience and practice, you can gain some substantial height that the developers did not intend. So by using this glitch, we can perform a super bounce to get over to the other side where the key is completely rainless. And for those of you who are wondering if the super bounce can be utilized for the gun truck section, unfortunately no, because the area before that has an invisible wall and ceiling that prevents us from going over. So once we pick up the key, we can carry forth. After we run past these 3 doors, we'll find 2 jump plates under a gate where we, once again, use the side to avoid the rains. You can take the first loop no problem, but with the second loop, you want to jump to avoid some rains and land safely. Be careful with some gamma robots and get yourself a free 1-up. And aside from a set of rains near the old ruins, you're home free to complete Pyramid Cave with 0 rains. Then we get Death Chamber, which could have been a more fitting name. This was always my least favorite Knuckles stage, and it was without a doubt the hardest to complete Rainless. Not only do you have to deal with hallways, but you also have to deal with gamma robots that have a fast reaction with their gunfires, and ghosts who will constantly pop out of nowhere to attack you. This admittedly took me a while to beat, but it is doable Rainless. And then we get the Egg Golem boss fight. Psych! We get King Boom Boo next. Admit it, most of you forgot this boss was even in this game. And what I hate so much about this boss fight is that it has nothing to do with the story and is never mentioned again after you finish it. And my god do I wish it was skippable, because this boss fight Rainless is absolutely brutal. You have to run around the stage with rains being both on the side and around the center. It will definitely take several attempts to get a good feel of both running while avoiding the rains. Then you gotta hit the ghost carrying the hourglass and hope that King Boom Boo does not turn around. The best way to make sure that he doesn't turn around is to wait for him to breathe out fire. You can get the cue that he's doing so through the audio, which is your move to run and punch the ghost in the face. Next, you gotta dig up King Boom Boo without touching a rain and hit it once. It's apparently possible to get all 4 hits on him in one cycle, but I could never hit him twice during one cycle. Once you get 2 hits on him, the second half of the fight gets brutal as he will perform a chomping animation and slowly catch up to you. This moment really causes a lot of anxiety. Oh god, I thought I had a rain there. I thought I had a rain there. God damn it! Run, run, run. I just picked up a rain, and why am I not moving faster? Shit. Oh my god, stop chomping. Stop chomping. Oh my fuck. I died so much that I must have done this boss fight a few dozen times. However, I think I got the strategy down. When he performs the chomping animation, just continue running and focus on where you're running and ignore the boss entirely. He may seem very threatening, but if you don't let the anxiety get the best of you, I can guarantee you won't flub your input. Then it's waited for him to breathe fire and attack the ghost with the hourglass. With enough practice, it is definitely indeed possible to beat King Boom Boo without collecting a single rain.
What a hassle.
No argument here, Nux. Then we get the Egg Golem boss fight where we can... Oh, great. When this boss fight starts, be careful as Sonic is a fur away from touching a rain. If you hold down and run along the edge, you won't fall off, so it's pretty easy to get to the golem's back and climb up for the hit. Though, be careful as sometimes Sonic will land on a rain after you damage the golem. If you happen to fall down below, be careful not to do too many homing attacks as you can target onto the item boxes down here. As long as you stay to the side and keep to the golem's back, the Egg Golem boss fight is very possible to beat Rainless. Next, we will get Tails' final stage, Eternal Engine, which really only has 2 difficult sections as most rains can be avoided easily. Take the left sprain here instead of the right sprain, don't be afraid of this balloon as it will restore your health, spam your shards of the artificial chaos as you will destroy it eventually, and don't forget to commit eternal Omochao abuse because it's funny as hell. But once you enter into this room, you will come across a bunch of enemies constantly firing at you, or rains in the center of explodable platforms with wall-hugging methods not being feasible. You can stand on the rails and walk on them, but the collision is so thin that it's easy for Tails to fall onto a rain or off the edge. There are multiple ways of getting through this room, including out-of-bounds methods, though the easiest method is to just jump on the right rail and hover to where the switch is. From here, just fire at the robot across and blindly hover to the platform on the other side. The rest of the room is definitely doable with a few rail walkings and hovering, and don't be afraid to shoot everywhere as there's no item boxes in the area. Once you get past here, the next tricky section is where you get Tails' power-up ability. If you can cross this bridge without blowing it up, great. If not, you can safely fall down here and flick the switch, but to go back up, you have to stand on this platform with an item box on it. Standing on the rails is a no-go, however, if you hover and stand at the very edge of the platform, you can ride the way up without collecting the item box, then get Tails' bazooka in a rain of rains. And the rest of the stage is easy with no rains being a threat, so aside from Hidden Base, all of Tails' stages are doable. Meteor Herd is a treasure hunting stage, so of course it's doable. You can also gain the sunglasses in this stage no problem, though be careful on your way out. Once in a while you might have to deal with meteors that will just fall on you out of nowhere, but it's an easy stage to beat Ringless. Then we get the rival boss fight between Knuckles and Rouge. This is probably the hardest of all the rival boss fights, because not only do you have to deal with rains coming out of Rouge when you hit her, but you also have to perfectly dive into her or else she will kill you with a fast kick. It's a tough fight, but definitely possible. Crazy Gadget is great for anyone crazy enough to accept a rainless challenge. In the second room where you flip the gravity switch, there's a few rains that you will get if you take the sprain, so to avoid these rains, we will do a super bounce while upside down. Once you hit this checkpoint, we do a spin dash and do a homing attack to avoid the set of rains on the rail. To avoid these set of rains, just stand on top of the middle crates and jump and try not to fall off, which is easy to flub up. And jump to avoid the rains at the bottom and avoid getting hit by the artificial chaos. Go pick up the flame rain so you can destroy gray crates, and at this moment do a spin dash but don't touch the control stick. Release and do a homing attack to get to the other side. And now, we get to the part that you've all been waiting for. The 49 rains you are intended to light dash through in order to beat this stage. So, can we skip these rains entirely? Because once you get past these rains, it's possible to beat the rest of the stage without touching a rain. Well, believe it or not, the speedrun community has already found strategies to beat the stage rainless for more than a decade. The unfortunate part is that it's hard to pull off these tricks, and I could not pull off any of these tricks that I'm about to show you. One strategy to skip these rains entirely is by doing a very frame-perfect A-press after a spin dash. If you look on the outside, the next area you have to go to is actually not that far off from where you are. I haven't been able to pull off this trick, but by getting the right momentum from the spin dash and then jump in a frame after releasing the B button, you can get to the other side without touching a single rain. The next skip is quite a technical one and considered the hardest to pull off. It is known as the Crazy Gadget Skip, or CGS for short. You start off in the room with the 3 gravity switches and go to the left side. This side is only useful to get a shield, but if you stand on the middle crates and do a frame-perfect spin dash and a jump, you could enter the next room with the wrong gravity. It's a very technical one that requires a few other difficult steps after that, but essentially you want to reach a room in the wrong gravity in order to clip out of bounds and fall straight to the goal rain. Very complicated and not easy to pull off at all. However, this discovery has been replaced with the CGSS, literally known as Crazy Gadget Skip Skip. By standing in a very specific area around the same spot, we can slip Sonic out of bounds and move him in a direction so he lands straight on the goal rain. The first hardest part is getting past this room without touching the death barriers, which are everywhere. Essentially, you need to spin dash Sonic in between 2 death barriers without touching either one. I've done this glitch dozens of times and only managed to get out of bounds once. The problem? I was way too high above the goal rain and where the final room is, so I had Sonic falling sideways into space for all eternity, with no mercy for death. Well, at least I'm good at being bad at video games. You have to get between the 2 different death barriers and somehow land perfectly where the goal rain is. This is by no means an easy strategy, but it's the most utilized by speedrunners for an any percent or low percent run of the game. If you want to give this trick a try, be my guest, but be prepared to die a lot. Long story short, it is entirely possible to beat Crazy Gadget Rainless in more ways than one, Just without a doubt the most brutal stage to do so that I couldn't really do it myself. The second rival boss fight against Eggman is easy because there's literally no range in the entire stage. Just brutally empty your gun into Eggman and avenge Sonic. And then we have Final Rush. This stage is probably one of the toughest to beat with zero range because there are literally rains everywhere. You either need a lot of momentum to make the perfect jumps to avoid rains, make the perfect jumps to avoid rains, or take it slow. There's a ton to talk about in this stage, but for the sake of time, I will not tell you how I beat it. Instead, I will let you guys figure out how to beat this stage yourself, Ringless, because it truly is a well-balanced challenge and you can do the entire stage without any glitches or major skips. Sonic and Shadow compare fur colors again, and we fight Shadow. You pretty much just have to fight him as intended and don't get hit by his Chaos Spear. Attack him at the right time, avoid the rains, and it's very doable to do the final boss battle to end the hero story. And wow, the hero story got intense in some moments, particularly with the Kane Boom Boo boss fight, Crazy Gadget, and Final Rush, but in the end, the only two stages that were questionably impossible to beat were City Escape and Hidden Base. So are they possible to beat Ringless? Well, we'll find out after I cover the rest of Story Mode. But in the meantime, if you're enjoying this video, be sure to give it a like, comment, and subscribe, and ding the bell for more content. Be sure to follow me on Twitter and join my Discord server, and yeah, I hope you guys are ready for the dark story. So you ready for the dark story? Alright, let's do the dark story. Iron Gate is overall a simple Eggman stage that thankfully does not require too many rains to avoid, but it does have a few tight moments where you can accidentally target onto an item box containing rains, but overall, it's an easy stage to beat Ringless. Soon, Shadow awakens up to take down some hotshot who thinks he's Bigfoot, but unlike Bigfoot, hotshot goes down faster because you can attack him while he's charging up an attack at you. Easy to do Ringless. Next, we play Boobs the Bat in Dry Lagoon. Other than committing Omochao abuse to save a turtle, there's nothing to talk about this stage since it's a treasure hunting stage and treasure hunting stages are doable. And despite Eggman being able to fly to his pyramid during the day, we play Sand Ocean where we go to his pyramid on foot at night. I guess Eggman needed a nap or something? I don't know. Anyway, Sand Ocean is a good challenge for a rainless run as there's a lot of rains that you have to avoid by walking on the edge of platforms or areas where there's just lots of rains in general. At this point of the game, we do not have Eggman's hover ability yet, but even without it, Sand Ocean is a challenging but doable stage to beat with zero rains that requires a lot of patience, careful shooting, and taking it slow. Next, we have Shadow's first stage, Radical Highway. After the first checkpoint, commit Omochao abuse again and do not take the loop. If you jump to the side, a gust of wind will prevent Shadow from dropping down. However, if you go close to the end of the loop, you can drop down. Do not take the spring going downwards or otherwise you will pick up some rains. You could jump to the bottom blindly if you wanted to, I mean, it will work, but the safest method is to do a spin dash and a jump around the building. After the last checkpoint, you will get another loop with rains on it. Jump to the side and carefully use the gust of wind to get to the other side. And now, we get to the most troubling part of the entire stage. The loop-de-loop before the goal rain. This section is very hard for me to put into words, but you can't improvise here as the game will always force Shadow into the middle, encouraging him to run in the center. Jumping too soon will result in death, and the barriers have weak collision, and it's something that you have to experiment for yourself to know how impossible it is to dodge these rains. At best, you could dodge the last line of rains, but even then, you'll be fighting with the game's engine constantly. And much to my surprise, the speedrun community admits that this part is impossible, making a low score run of Radical Highway not feasible. So, is it possible to beat Radical Highway without rains? Well, speedrunner DeeVoo took it upon himself to find out, so we'll put this stage on the back burner to see if DeeVoo can make a rainless run possible. And there is a robot at the end, so we can finish the stage with zero rains, keeping our total rain score down to 0. Next up is A Quarters. Definitely easier than Death Chamber, but can still be challenging Ringless for the same reasons. Lost Colony is a literal dark stage that is darker on the GameCube version, so the Steam version is much easier to see what you're doing in comparison. Though for the most part, there's not too much when it comes to a challenge in a Ringless run. You get Eggman's hover ability here, and there is one room that may seem threatening at first, but if you take the platform above to where the ancient ruins are, you can avoid all the rains in this room entirely. Not much to say other than this stage is easy. Then we do another Eggman stage, Weapons Bed. A satisfying stage to rank up your score, but be careful as there are plenty of rains around for you to accidentally log onto. There's one moment where the wall hugging method won't work, so instead, just ride to the side to the checkpoint and you should be good. Once you complete Weapons Bed Ringless, you have to murder Foxboy by emptying your gun into him. You know, it's interesting how we get the first rival boss fight after 4 stages with Eggman, yet this is how we start off with Tails in the hero story. For the first half of the Dark story, you really do play too much of Eggman. Thankfully, the short guys get to shine as Rouge goes through Security Hall to find the Chaos Emeralds in 5 minutes. It's a treasure hunting stage, so what more can I say? Next we get Flying Dog, skippable rains during a cutscene, and easy to murder Ringless. Then we get Shadow's second stage, White Jungle, which is probably the hardest of all of the Shadow stages Ringless if you ignore the loop-de-loop problem from Radical Highway. There's a lot to mention for this stage, so bear with me. At the start, stop before you collect the reins and run on the top. There's a free 1-up that you can get over here, which, trust me, you'll need that extra retry. After the first checkpoint, go on top of the geometry, but be careful as there's a set of reins before the dash panel. There's a set of reins on this loop, so you need to jump to the other side, which is easier said than done, as sometimes the physics will mess you up. Be prepared to die here a few times. Once you make it to the other side, you want to go on top of the geometry again to avoid reins, and when you reach the jump plate, jump off at the very edge because you will pick up reins if you touch these sprains. Carry a mushroom to take off Sonic, and when you reach this loop with the missing top, jump before you collect the reins at the top and land safely on the other side. And after another bit of archway running, we get to the part that you've all been waiting for. Here, we must use the light dash to get to the other side, but we can only do that if we have the Lightspeed Dash shoes down below, which has reins of its own on the way, and even if we do get down here, we have 2 trails of reins to light dash through, so what do we do here? Well, believe it or not, this is the only moment in the game where the devs intend Shadow to rain dash, so if we skip this part, we can beat his remaining stages without his power-up, and to skip it, we stand on the right side of this edge, do a spin dash, and jump, and do a homing attack on the right side of the spring to get to the other side. Celebrate the skip all you want, but the stage is not over yet. There's a loop section with, of course, reins on it, but if we stand on the top of the right edge, we can do a spin dash and release to get to the other side. Go on top of the geometry again, and after that, there's really no reins that becomes a huge obstacle that gets in the way, as we can finish the stage with more than half the time limit left. So yes, both speed stages that require you to get the light dash ability are entirely beatable Ringless. In fact, I didn't even collect Shadow's ability at all because I won't be needing it for his remaining 2 stages. Sonic then makes fun of Shadow because the devs decide to give Shadow a brown butthole on his model, so he kills Sonic out of embarrassment for pointing that out. Next up is Route 280 as Rouge, and aside from the stage having more hazards and unfair moments like this bullcrap, you could still beat the stage easily Ringless. Shadow visits Skyrail for some sightseeing as we jump to the left, jump to the right, and drop down below for a free 1-up. And after the first checkpoint, do not take the rail all the way down as there's a set of unavoidable reins down below. Instead, grind on the left, grind on the right, and make a jump to a later set of rails right here. Stay on the left rail, but be careful if you're grinding backwards as the game will be a little confused on what direction you're intending to go. You can go to the left, but you'll have to deal with making the perfect bounce up here while a robot is constantly firing at you. I recommend getting the momentum from the left rail and doing a homing attack on this spring to avoid any more hazards. After the checkpoint on Church Mountain, stay on the left rail, and from here, it's just a matter of avoiding hazards until you get to the goal rain. Next, we get the Egg Golem boss fight where Eggman— Why do I have one rain? Okay, let me restart that again and shit. So this leaves us with an interesting dilemma. We are forced to pick up one rain and we don't have any input to avoid it. So what does this mean? Well, I decided to take one hit to revert back to 0 and just did the whole boss fight with 0 rains. This boss fight is far easier to fight than the hero version because you can just use the pulley system to attack, drop down to avoid its attacks, and keep shooting only when you're at chest level. This boss fight is definitely very easy to beat rainless, but yeah, we are forced to pick up one rain at the start. So does this mean the challenge is undoable? Well, I'm gonna place this stage into a different category. The Peach Rains category, where it's served with peach rains on top, but everyone removes it before they can enjoy the full meal. Next, we have everyone's favorite level in the game, Mat Space, where, god damn it, yeah, right after a Peach Rain boss fight, we start off with a Peach Rain level. No matter how much you mash the buttons or use the control stick, Bruges will automatically pick up 3 rains and we can't do any input till she touches the ground. So we have to get hit by the closest enemy to revert back to 0 and sadly have to serve Mat Space with Peach Rains. As if that wasn't bad tasting enough, there's really nothing new I can say about Mat Space that hasn't really been said already. The stage is too high to no low, and this emerald piece is way too hard to get than it should be. With the last treasure hunting stage completed rainless, we fight up against the man with 4 jewels and go for that 4 times over the rains in the arena, all while Omocha was giving us bad advice. Next, we get Eggman's last stage, Cosmic Wall. A pretty easy stage, but also a tempting one to shoot all over the place, which is not a good idea as you can target onto item boxes easily. There are a few tight scenarios, but all the rains are easily avoidable. We then murder Foxboy after murdering that blue hedgehog, and Bruges tells Shadow about the Sonato porn she found while researching. Shadow heads into Final Chase to stop Sonato from ever becoming a thing as we get a not as fun version of Final Rush, but it's definitely easier to complete rainless, including getting the Mystic Melody ability. Just avoid going into the middle of some of the areas, jump when necessary, be careful not to touch item boxes unless they are rainless item boxes, and Final Chase is easy to complete rainless. We face off against Sonic, which we know is going to be doable since we— oh, dang it, rains. Well, no problem. If I just hold back and jump, I could dodge the rains or not. Okay, I am not serving this final boss with Peach Rains, so what options do we have to avoid a rain? Well, if you look closely, the rains are floating in the air above the ground, giving room to dodge underneath. If we time it right, we can press the B button to roll under the rains, and if we stop between 2 rains, we can continue on with the rest of the boss fight rainless. So, after Shadow kills Sonic to make sure Sonato fanfics never happen, we have concluded that Radical Highway is the only stage in the Dark Story that we cannot complete rainless, but both the Egg Golem boss fight and Mat Space had us started off with rains before we had any input on the character. So, if we were to null the Peach Rains from breaking the rules of the run, technically Radical Highway is our only big obstacle with the loop-de-loop section. So, is there a way to beat Radical Highway rainless? Well, we'll find out after the last story. So in the meantime, if you're enjoying this video, be sure to give it a like, comment, and subscribe, and ding the bell for more Nitsa Gamer content. You can also follow me on Twitter and join my Discord server, and that's pretty much all I have to say. So let's get on with the last story. The last story starts off with Cannon's Core, which has you playing as every character except for Shadow. Tails and Eggman offer not that many rains to avoid, but their portions can be rough, even with a health meter. Rouge only has 2 sets of rains to worry about, the rains around the main switch, and the rains as you go through the pathway to a switch to unlock the gate for the main switch. Knuckles is up next, and with the air necklace, the difficulty of this portion is reduced. But is Knuckles' portion possible to do rainless? Well, personally I didn't bother to find out as I just clipped Knuckles out of bounds in the first room and glided my way to the final room, skipping the entire challenge. Hey, if I'm neglecting my financial responsibilities, might as well neglect all of my responsibilities altogether. Then we have Sonic, who unfortunately starts off with 8 rains. There is no way to dodge these rains by using any buttons or the control stick, so sadly, Cannon's core has to be served with Peach rains. We get hit by the closest enemy and make our way to the sand slide by hugging the wall. If we collect a single rain going down this slide, we would have to restart the entire stage again from scratch, so hug the wall like it's your best friend. And with that, Cannon's core is possible to beat Rainless, but sadly starts off with 8 Peach rains near the end of the level. And with our total rain score still down to 0, we only have one more challenge that stands in our way. Amy convinces Shadow that Sonato brings people happiness and that it's a good thing, so Shadow goes to make sure that the ship becomes a thing. But Shadow's big brother, the Bio Lizard, stands in the way as he doesn't value true happiness. Shadow and him have a little bit of a sibling rivalry, and at first, this seems like it's going to be a very easy boss fight since there's only 4 sets of rains on the outer side of the circle. However, after the first phase, the difficulty curve gets pushed up so high, making this the hardest boss fight in the Rainless run. If you thought Cane Boom Boo was tough, Bio Lizard will have you ripping your quills out of your head. I probably tried this fight over 50 times on the GameCube version with no success, but after a while I managed to beat it on the Steam version after 16 attempts, so get used to Omochao constantly telling you to get good. The first phase is the easiest as you need to wait for Big Bro to run out of breath so you can grind to his weak spot. The second phase is where you'll probably die the first few times as you need to dodge the Bio Lizard's energy balls by either jumping over it or somersaulting underneath. This is easier said than done because these balls will come at you fast. It's so easy to flub up your input or not have enough height when you jump. It's especially harder on the GameCube version since you're playing with lower quality. It's easier to see where the balls are in HD, but it will still take a while to get a good feel of dodging them. And the further you are away from the Bio Lizard, the bigger the balls. Being closer would be a wise strategy, but your reaction time may be limited. Once you get hits 2 and 3 on the Bio Lizard, the second half gets harder as his balls will be shooting at you at double the speed than before. This makes dodging them up close almost impossible to humanly react to the next shot. So for the 4th and 5th phase, you want to stand further away from the Bio Lizard. Yes, this means bigger balls to dodge, but you'll have a better reaction time further away. To attack his weak point, you just have to do the homing attack on some pink balls without getting slapped by other pink balls. And once you get past the 5th phase, the final phase has Shadow suspended in the air as you have to carefully get to the center to get one last hit on his weak point. I'm not gonna lie, this was harder to do than the Cane Boom Boo boss fight as you have to have a faster reaction time in on your inputs. You bet your ass I screamed yes when I finally delivered the final blow after 16 tries on the Steam version. So yeah, Bio Lizard is the hardest boss fight Rainless, but it's entirely possible. After that, Sonic and Shadow become super and we now have Final Hazard. I'm not gonna lie, after having a frustrating time with Bio Lizard, having to do Final Hazard with Live and Learn Rocket in the background was an amazing treat for me. And the best part is that the final boss fight has no rains in the area, as Sonic and Shadow collect them off screen and you have to finish the Final Hazard before you run out of rains or the timer hits 5 minutes. Very easy to complete. So, with Shadow sacrificing himself for the fans and to never return to future games, all 3 stories completed and a total rain count of 0, we have finished the Rainless run for Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. And I gotta say, while there are some very frustrating stages and boss fights to deal with, this was an awesome way to replay my most favorite Sonic game of all time. So in total, we have 3 stages that force us to start off with rains, but are otherwise completable Rainless with player input. So the only 3 impossible stages where we do have player input is City Escape, Hidden Base, and Radical Highway. And with help from the speedrun community, not only do we have potential skips that could make these levels possible, but we broke 2 low percent records in Sonic Adventure 2 speedrunning. In Radical Highway, the impossible moment is having to deal with the loop-de-loop near the end, as the game will foreshadow into the center, leaving no room for improvisation, as doing so is punishable. Speedrunner DeeVoo took it upon himself to complete the stage with a score of 0 while avoiding the reins in the loop-de-loop. It took him quite a while to accomplish this goal, but as of August 17th, he broke the low percent record by making it through the loop-de-loop completely rainless. I gotta say, amazing job, dude. Check out the video and his channel in the description down below. So yes, Radical Highway is actually possible to beat completely rainless. In Hidden Base, there's actually already been a discovery to skip the pulley entirely, but it's in no way humanly possible. Using a glitch called pause hovering, you can gain height with Tails and Eggman to areas you're not meant to be. Using this glitch, you can land on the statue's shoulder and skew Tails' position and jump onto the wall where you can run on the wall. After a while of wall running, you can make it up to the high area without using the pulley. Sounds easy, but the problem is that this trick has only been achievable in a tool-assisted run. Most of you probably already know what TASs are, which are essentially frame-perfect inputs in an emulator that allows speedrunners to show off a strategy, in theory, that is otherwise impossible for a human to pull off. And as of now, this strategy of skipping the pulley has yet to be done by a human player. So the question is, how many reins can a human collect to complete the stage? Well, for a while, it used to be 3 reins, as you can pause hover to avoid the last 3 reins going up, but as of August 14th, speedrunner Brian PSO broke the low percent record by collecting only 2 reins. That is an awesome accomplishment, dude. I bet the low percent speedrunners are envious. Again, link in the description down below. And that just leaves City Escape, which unfortunately has not made any new discoveries since I started this run. However, a low score strategy has been made by a YouTuber named Sonic Guitar, and bear in mind, the last checkpoint is before the 5 reins we need to skip, and this guy managed to accomplish this level at a score of 0. So how did he skip these reins? Well, by going to the loop where you run down the building, he does a series of spin dashes and homing attacks to try to clip through the side. There's no consistent strategy for this, and many speedrunners have yet to pull this trick off themselves, but by doing a homing attack at the right spot, Sonic can clip through the loop and invisible wall and coincidentally launch himself towards the direction of the gun truck section, skipping the entire portion right down to where the goal rein is. This strategy has yet to be pulled off again, and it's argued whether or not the bounce bracelet is required to pull this off. Though, looking at it again, I think it is possible to do it on a new game file. The problem is, someone in this 4K era has yet to pull this trick off again. So now the question is, can you beat Sonic Adventure 2 Battle without collecting reins? Well, if you include Dark Golem, Mad Space, and Cannon's Core where you start off with reins, then no. It is impossible to beat Sonic Adventure 2 Battle rainless. However, if you were to null these stages and only consider the ones where you have player input, right now, it's not possible to beat Sonic Adventure 2 Battle rainless, but it's not impossible either. Right now, it's very possible to beat Radical Highway rainless, just way too brutal to do so. It's plausible to beat Hidden Base rainless if a human can pull off the task strategy of running on the wall, and City Escape is plausible once we figure out a consistent strategy to pull off the skip every time. So in conclusion, it is plausible to beat Sonic Adventure 2 Battle without collecting reins. If you want to break records in the low percent speedrun community, these 3 moments are the ones to figure out. A new day brings a new adventure. But for now, rest easy, heroes.